Alright, hello. I'm going to do my best to try to explain the Marxist concepts of simple and expanded reproduction. I think they're very important and useful for understanding our current economic situation. So at the end of the working day, the capitalist and the worker both need to reproduce themselves. They need to do whatever it takes in order to be able to make it to the next working day. For the worker, that generally entails, like eating some food, relaxing, whatever it takes. Taking care of children is a big part of it, etc. And then for the capitalists, obviously they don't have to do these things at the end of each, like, literal working day, but at the end of each, cycle of production, they'll need to do things like pay for rent on whatever property. They need to pay their workers their wages in order to continue having labor power to produce surplus value. They need to pay for the upkeep of their machinery and like all their equipment. All that sort of thing that is like the bare minimum of what it takes to make it to the next day. That is simple reproduction. It doesn't really exist except conceptually. It doesn't exist like without the added concept of expanded reproduction. It always comes with this expanded reproduction, which is where the capitalists, like, they're investing a certain amount of their surplus profit into, like, again, like paying their wages is a big one, generally paying for rent, paying for upkeep of the machines, and then whatever the money making beyond that is profit. So some of that profit needs to be reinvested into the business in a way beyond simply reproducing it, just because of the nature of competition between different firms. But that money gets reinvested, or at least some degree of that money. Like, obviously some of the profit is still kept for the shareholders or whatever, but some money is going back into the business, into research and design, like whatever it takes to produce like innovation, which comes in the form of like efficiency increasing technologies, which allow the capitalists to gain a competitive edge and allow them to produce more surplus, like more profit, at least in the short term. Because what happens is that these kinds of technologies, these innovations that one particular firm or one particular capitalist or capital produces, they eventually become generalized across the entire industry, and then furthermore those kinds of technologies find their way into other industries, as well as producing or like bringing into being like the industry involved in producing these, like in whatever the innovation in question is. Like, for example, with microchips in the middle of the 20th century, like that innovation came out of the defense industry, and eventually they had to like create factories or whatever. There are a bunch of jobs that came into being with the invention of this new technology, and then obviously that technology like moved out of strictly being for government defense or whatever, and became used in a whole host of like consumer commodities. So this is the idea of expanded reproduction, where the capitalist is not just doing the bare minimum to reproduce their factory or whatever, but they're actually like driving innovation. Like, profit is what drives innovation, and it's how you get all these like amazing new commodities, like a new version of your smartphone, or like whatever new flavor combination McDonald's is coming up with. That is like what drives that sort of innovation, is like the imperative, the logical imperative. It is not just like the greed of like some particular capitalist, but it's a real logical imperative for these enterprises to be always like working to gain some edge over the competition, Otherwise, they, like, capital will move away from that firm and, attach itself to another firm that is, doing more to be more competitive, to be more profitable, because capital is always going to where the profit is. So that's the idea of expanded reproduction. I think, I am getting all of this information from this essay that I read recently from the EndNotes Publishing Collective called Misery and Debt. I recently put out, I think this week, a podcast where I am discussing that essay and going through it in much more depth, much more rigor, and getting a lot more into it with my co-host. Like, a lot of interesting conversation came out of reading that essay. It's like a very excellent essay, and I encourage everyone to go check it out. I think it actually came out last week, but anyway, it's up on the same channel. And what was I going to say? One of that essay really, like, tracks the historic development of all of these forces and all of this market phenomena over the course of the 20th century. It's going against the bourgeois economists' like, constant belief or hope, really, like, completely ungrounded hope that there, like, despite this constant shift of capital from one industry to the next, following, like, whatever technological innovation, the thing that I guess I failed to mention is that, when one industry, for example, the microchip, like, becomes invented as, like, a innovation technique, like, there's going to be a loss of jobs somewhere, and then, like, the bourgeois economists' hope is that there'll always follow this loss of jobs in whatever industry is being innovated upon, with new jobs in some other industry. That is like without that assumption, then there's really nothing to look forward to. There's nothing like making the whole world go around. There's really nothing for us as the working class. But the argument of this essay is that that process of expanded reproduction actually cannot continue forever, just logically speaking. In the terms of the market, I won't get, like, too much into it here. You should go listen to that podcast episode if you want to hear more about it, if this sort of thing interests you. But their argument is that, like, obviously there cannot be like, jobs created ad infinitum, and like, they do a lot of research into the empirical data from the 20th century, showing that, in fact, the, like, employment numbers have been steadily going down, even in China, where China is touted as, like, being, like, a great capitalist nation or whatever. But the argument is that the numbers speak against this hope on the part of the capitalists that job creation will just always be able to continue. And another thing that they really get into that I just want to, like, leave on a teaser on, is that, like, over the course of the 20th century, especially in the second half, like, following the wars, there's this, like, big process of, like, moving capital from moving industries from one part of the world to another. Like, we know, obviously, that like, manufacturing moved from the central nations to, like, the global south and Mexico and everything, and then eventually into China. But like, what that has resulted with in our present age is, like, our economies. I'm from Canada. I'm speaking to Americans, presumably, and, like, Europeans. I mean, I expect that to be most of my audience, but, like, in these kinds of central nations where manufacturing has left, like, the real job that lies open to us, the major employment sector, is in the service industry, which obviously, like, there's been this complete deus ex machina that has completely disrupted that. Like, the service industry, as this essay argues, was only, like, a temporary stopgap. It could never have like provided the kind of real employment that these like massive economies need in order to sustain their populations. But you know, it was something in the meantime. It was something keeping the wolves from the door. But now we have this complete like like act of God that has completely reconfigured things. And like the service industry, I mean, I worked in the service industry for my entire 20s, and you know, now it is no more. Something interesting to think about. We'll see you next time.